Welcome, Divesh. You and I, it looks like we're gonna go. I almost said solo. It can't be solo. It can be duet. Is that duet or what is it?
A duet, yes, sir.
It's a duet. We have many of our colleagues that are experiencing load shedding today. So those who come is because they've been lucky. Their system is holding on. But otherwise, how are you, Divesh?
Well, Sam, greetings to you, Sam. Greetings to the listeners. I'm sure some of our regulars know us by now.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know whether they're fortunate that they get us, just us today, or they are unfortunate that they couldn't also enjoy our colleagues joining us on
yeah,
the call.
yeah.
Just an introduction quickly for our listeners. Divesh Motilal. I'm an engineer by profession, but that being said, I do indulge in many different areas of life. And today's topic, which Sam will introduce in a moment, does attest to my own personal philosophies of in engaging in lifelong learning and always being a curious person to find out more about any interesting topic that comes across in our environment, and also to try and give back what you actually observe. And you always learn most when you're teaching to others. To respond to your question, I'm okay. I guess I'm in a fortunate position that can um, take the blows of the recent load shedding that we're getting after we had the somewhat drastic and very wet weather. So for me, again, from a learning perspective, these are signs of not only climate change but turbulence in our environments that we live in. And as a society, as a species, we really need to get onto the bandwagon of being more agile, more resilient, and being able to adapt when our life as it usually is disrupted by a lot of the outside factors. Sam.
Mm, mm. A lot of disruptions today, but I guess it depends on you how you look at it. But let me also officially welcome the guest. I purposefully wanted you to talk as if you are the host. We are co-hosts, you know. So I wanted you to start the discussion. Let me greet the listeners. This is Sam Zimmer. I'm the co-host and the anchor of these regular shows. Today we're talking about empowerment through business. And this is Cometa the Mind, the journey, the destiny. Applying our minds to the journey that takes us to our destiny. That's very intentional, Divesh. Lifelong learning is very intentional thing. And empowerment through business education is very much a phenomenon that is really rocking the world right now, where the days of going away to school and 5 years and then come back, try to apply what you have learned are gone. It is just not possible at the rate at which things are changing today. So that's why we want us to talk about this. But the background to this is that we have been involved in educating ourselves and many other people. We'll come to a realization that the time has come for us to enter this space very directly, where we see ourselves as deliverers of knowledge, information, insights, but in a way that contributes to the education landscape. Safe to say that we want to tackle it from a business perspective, and therefore you want to do it as you doing business or as you doing your work. This for me speaks to my own background because my own education, Divesh, for those who don't know, has been based on the dual education model of the German system, the Dutch system, and then many other organizations. Even the Swiss system is like that. You don't go away from work to learn. You learn as you do in your work. You achieve a qualification as you do in the work. What you learn today, you apply tomorrow. And tomorrow, if it changes, you come back and learn afresh and go back and apply. I think that is the gist of the background to this. I don't know about you, Divesh, if you want to share with the listeners your own journey. How did you follow it? Did you have to learn, work, or did you do both? Maybe let's start from there.
Mm, Thank you, Sam. Just as a brief history as well to share with our viewers, listeners out there. With me, I always found that your life journey, your learning journey, which parts for or forms part of who you evolve as a person, unfortunately in South Africa was sort of distorted or shaped by our political landscape. So we had to indulge with the politics of the day, which had the apartheid system, and most of my learning experience was driven by decisions of the community, and in my situation, it was the Indian community who embraced education as the stepping stone to get you out of whatever situation or whatever life situation you find yourself in. In that, they put money together as a community. They built schools so that the Indian communities could engage in education. You had the teachers also coming from the communities and making sure that the kids received a quality piece of education. And the apartheid government was not at that time building schools for the Indian communities. I grew up in KZN, KwaZulu Natal, or back in those days it was called Natal. And it was through this community initiatives and the more wealthier members of the Indian community that we were fortunate to actually have the educational resources that I was allowed to enjoy. I only attended a government school when I was in, I think, standard five. Or in these days, you'd say it's grade seven. And of course, in that instance, a lot of the educational resources that the communities had, which they had provided for through the community initiatives, transitioned then into the government schooling system. And of course, then I went on to move to tertiary education, went to University of Cape Town, did engineering. But even with that opportunity, I was fortunate that the American government actually gave me a scholarship to enable me to be able to study. And I think the lesson learned from that experience for me has been that you will feel challenges in life, and you learn to evolve as a person, and you always must make education your priority, because as much as life may change, the education that you have within yourself is something that you keep, and nobody can take that away from you. And
Mm,
really closer to your question, Sam, um, unfortunately, and I know that experience is sometimes different for others. Every organization that I was working for never seemed to want to support the educational desires that I had at the time. But like I had
mm,
said earlier, I never made that my stumbling block. I used
mm,
it to find opportunities outside of the work environment that still allowed me to benefit from learning new skills. I got involved in the artificial intelligence, I got involved in renewable energy, business space, and I've always found the desire to learn new things. And likewise with Cometza, we started
mm,
to engage with regards to skill level education, things that you need as a person, as a partner in a relationship, as a employee in a work environment, as a member of a community. There are certain skills, certain things that people need to learn. And I've really enjoyed being able to take our experiences, joining knowledge, and developing a product like we've done so with Cometsa, Sam.
mm, mm. And I think I hear you saying that we're not talking about the traditional education as people know it. We're talking about a mindset, a mindset which says that every moment of your life is a learning opportunity. And then, of course, some of the moments in our world of work, if captured very well and articulated very well with the education system, they do actually give you a qualification or give you a competency. Now, this concept of empowerment through business education is almost like all encompassing to say that business has got its own unique sets of challenges that sometimes cannot be resolved by consultants that we always bring in or by the wise men and women that we have within our organizations. But because they are ongoing phenomena, they could be addressed by us having a mindset which says that every opportunity, every challenge, every problem is learning opportunity. Before we actually look at the specific programs that we bring on board, we need to get that mindset right. And when you then go into the business of delivering education as an offering, you start to realize that your offering only becomes relevant for as long as the people you are delivering the knowledge and education to are ready to receive it and have a mindset of say, I can always learn more. Like the mindset you have shared, Divesh, that you don't judge the source of knowledge before you actually taste it. Because if you do that, you're going to block yourself from learning opportunities. Even this platform itself, being on the platform and understanding the ins and outs and even behind the scenes stuff is very empowering. I mean, it looks like we just press the button and then we talk. You know very well, having gone through our 40 units, that there's a lot of nitty gritties that go into things should becoming what they are. But at the same time, empowerment through education has become a business. I mean, think about it, Divesh. You have today people able to learn on online using platforms like Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Education, and then you have almost all universities moving away from bricks and mortar into then online education. And the rationale behind that is we no longer have a luxury of taking people from their sofas and from their desks to come to us to learn. Knowledge must find people. And let's talk a little bit about that and the knowledge having to find people there where they are. And 80% of the time people spend is at work. And if your offering does not actually consider that and is not packaged in a way that it can fit within that 80%, then a business education is a dream.
100%, Sam. Before we touch on the last or the latter points that you raised in terms of basically fostering innovation within an organization, you also mentioned the evolution from traditional education to something that we would call lifelong learning culture that we want to instill. And from a business perspective, we're talking about organizations. Maybe as well, the individuals may not be like yourself and myself who are hunger, who have a hunger for learning new skills, learning new types of sectoral knowledge. Uh, so you would obviously want to have an organization firstly driving the staff, the employees, the participants in the organization to also become someone who is striving towards a lifelong learning culture. And how can we embrace lifelong learning, enhancing individual career growth, and then fostering innovation within organizations? And the short answer there is through platforms like ourselves, platforms like the ones you mentioned, which allows the benefits of online learning platforms, which trumps the the traditional learning environments that we used to, where you would have a scheduled appointment, you would have scheduled classes, you traditionally have to tran- you know uh, transport yourself to where the material is being dispersed, unlike the value propositions that the online provides to you. So,
mm,
embracing lifelong learning is allowing individuals to not only continuously update their skills, leading obviously to an increase in adaptability, their abilities to innovate. But organizations can also then benefit by nurturing a workforce that will stay ahead of the trends in the industry, the technological advancements, which is changing at a drastic pace, not only in the local environment but on a global scale. And the competitiveness that that brings is that we can no longer wait and use the traditional types of education to disseminate knowledge and skill to our potential students. But we really need to use new innovative ways like the ones that you've mentioned, Sam.
yeah, yeah. I'm part of two such organizations that have taken the decision to invest in education, and I realized that this is a big sector. I mean, the toyou.com, which has acquired the Get Smarter, a South African technology product from Cape Town, and integrated it into their EXD platform. And now, not only offering short courses, because traditionally business education was delivered as a short, mostly as short courses. But now they've actually, interesting enough, entered into the higher education space. They're offering basic degrees through the digital platform. And you could be sitting in Australia and your students sitting in New York doing a 3 year degree online. And you might you might say, but they when did they get to see the lecturer? They don't have to see the lecturer. And the lecturer has got many ways of multiplying themselves through podcasts like this, audio, video cast, and then also fresh and newly researched information. Because the idea now, you have a bare minimum of syllabus that you need to cover. But with these platforms, you actually give the learners opportunity to go and even look more. That is the toyou.com. And then there I'm tutoring and assessing for 6 weeks executive leadership course, people-centric type of management course. And I'm telling you, every day when I have these students, remember, these are managers, these are executives, right? They don't bring you something from the book to the class or to the discussion group. They bring you a real story. Now, you can't just wish-washy the discussions because this person is looking for insights from other colleagues that are sitting somewhere in the world. So the discussions topics we give them, they force them to bring something from their work to support other colleagues. So it's a collective team learning. Then the other one then is the Coach Hub, which I'm part of, which is the digital coaching platform organization, which actually has liberated the entire world of coaching, that we can actually coach 24/7 anywhere from anywhere in the world. And last week, you will love this, I told you, I think, we launched AIMY, AIMMY, which is almost like my AI, but it's AIMY. Amy is a AI coach, and Amy, a very well researched product together with Microsoft that is now actually making the leaders of business very intrigued because they use the psychology, they use the digital experts, the engineers to come to a bare minimum of requirement of a coach, a real coach. And you go into that coach's diversion, then you say, Amy, I would like to talk about my career. And immediately Amy will ask you, what about your career? Now, you see, I mean, it's a question that I will ask as a coach and sometimes even forget to ask because I'm a human, right? Amy will ask you the type of questions that will make you go there where the answers are without actually making any mistake. Now, this brings this topic of business education closer home to say that you're going to have to think very creatively and innovatively about the type of a business education you are going to be embarking on. Because it's not business education for the sake of business education. Number one, you need to think about the level of business education you are going to engage on. Number two, you need to think about the environment in which that business education is taking place and the sector in which you are, because nothing now is standard, right? So business education we're talking about, we're saying that you can't be passively sitting in front of the laptop like this and assimilating information. You've got to be actively engaged with whoever is giving that information, whether it's an AI teacher or it's a real teacher. But you can't afford to be passive because that doesn't bring value. And now that already says that you dealt with the mindset, you believe that the knowledge is sitting there where you work, and now you want to extract it. And somebody might be sitting in the same class with you, but extracting different kind of knowledge from their company, right? But when we then come together and discuss collectively, we actually can relate to each other's story. And we get even encouraged to say, okay, I'm actually in a manufacturing industry. My colleague in the class is in the banking sector, but there are similarities in terms of the knowledge and that he is sharing. And I've got lessons that I can take from there. So definitely my understanding of business education we're not talking about just an alternative to any other education. We're talking few things, and then I will let you reflect on this diversion. Number one, we're talking about the speed at which business education is delivered. I need this education, this knowledge, this competency, this insight, these solutions like yesterday. Because the problem happened yesterday. It can't happen today, definitely not tomorrow, right? So I'm sitting with you and I'm getting this knowledge as somebody who's a business education facilitator, and I want to walk out of this class knowing what to do with my problem that is waiting for me at work. That is one unique feature. The second unique feature is a mobility or transferability of this knowledge. I'm sitting in Johannesburg and I'm using platform with somebody sitting in New York, and then he's teaching me something that, and then he says to you, this worked for me downtown Manhattan. And then I asked the question, I said, can it work for me in Johannesburg? You know what he's going to say? He's going to say, I don't know, you should know better. Because you are in Johannesburg. Paint a picture for me in Johannesburg. Then you can ask me the question whether it will work. So the relevance of where you are as you are acquiring this business knowledge is a critical feature of business empowerment through business education. Thirdly, is the speed with which the knowledge must be unlearned. So if you learn and then you think you have learned and then tomorrow's situation changes and you're still applying that knowledge, you're going to hurt yourself because it might just not work. So that's another thing. And then fourthly, diverge, which is something that we are doing. You ought to be able to go and teach exactly what you have learned now, not tomorrow, but now. Because if you can't teach it, you haven't learned it. Because why companies send few people to courses and not the whole staff? It's because they expect you to come back and teach. And what does that mean? That means, therefore, you must have the capacity, the competency to be able to facilitate, to mentor, and to coach. Things that used not to be taken important in the old education. So if I send you to a class and then you come back, you know the content, but you have no capability and no competency to facilitate, which is what we did acquire in the 40 units. You are not going to be able to be of use to us. And then lastly, Divesh, something that is very close to what we are doing, which is what I do at Coach Apple together with my other 3,500 coaches worldwide. That's why they call us digital coaches. They are calling us digital coaches not because we master technology, but because we are able to integrate the knowledge dissemination using our methodology and the platforms being the technologies, and making sure that you use relevant technology to suit the kind of learners you are talking to. And that requires versatility, And that is a competency that is going to disqualify many people from being able to learn from business education. I'll hold it there, and I hope I've painted what I understand as business education and the empowerment it could bring.
Yes, Sam, I would respond as well with the last point you raised. I don't think it's a doom and gloom for those who may not be adaptable to the digital transformation of business education, because that's what we're talking about. It's a
Yeah.
transformation, and
Mm,
transformation is meant to be a strong word because it's exactly what you mentioned. It's a new skill set. You may know your subject matter, you could be a subject matter expert, but especially when we went through the COVID pandemic experience, the large amount of lockdown which we had at schools, businesses, where we had to then turn to technology. But it was much more, like you rightfully said, than just having new types of technology. People had to adjust, to learn, to disseminate information, to take decisions in a different manner, being able to lead people just by seeing them on a digital screen
mm,
and not seeing them physically. It's not as easy as it's said. It does allow for a new skill set to be uh, um, learned from the stakeholders that's involved. Um, and again, we're looking at the move from traditional business schools and the types of, or rather, from the traditional schools approach to the online education platforms, like you mentioned. And one that I wanted to also hone in on is that of Kometsa's Business Academy.
mm.
And some of these skills which we are talking about, they are often overlooked. And again, I would still think that as fast as society is moving with regards to the adoption and utilization of technology to do things in different ways, there is some human skills which needs to be, as you rightfully said, unlearned and relearned to adapt and to be able to use the technology to be more effective than what we had with the traditional approach of learning and the traditional way of teaching. Again, I mean, if we look at digital platforms in itself, they really are or have been reshaping content delivery, the levels of engagement, and definitely accessibilities. You spoke of being able in or being in Australia, for example, and having a student again in the United States, India, it could be anywhere in the world. And South Africa, for that matter, is very fortunate. And these skills we are talking about, these new ways of disseminating learning, is very applicable to South Africa because of time zone.
Yeah.
We can actually reach the entire world because of
Mm,
where we are located geographically.
mm.
And when we, I mean, you've touched on some of the key benefits and some potential drawbacks. I mean, everything, we get drawbacks as well. And of course, as a learning society, as a participant in lifelong learning, we take these drawbacks as challenges and we find solutions for them. So
Mm.
I think the load shedding was a drastic one, which has a negative impact on the type of uh, business we are promoting as
Yeah.
online, as streaming. But I mean, you and me, we managed to overcome that challenge. And
Mm.
likewise, with the resources being made available, others can also enjoy um, being able to overcome that challenge. But
Yeah.
when we look at the key benefits, I mean, I must mention digital transformation is providing flexibility, personalized learning experiences, global access to quality content. However, the challenges, as we mentioned, also you must be ensure or you must ensure as a teacher, as a coach, as a mentor, as a facilitator, you must ensure consistent quality. You must maintain that learner engagement, which you also mentioned, and there is tools and tricks and tips that we can share with listeners as we would as we disseminate Kometsa's own skills that we teach
Mhm.
people of this new environment. And of
Yeah,
course, you want to achieve recognition for the online credentials across the industries. And that as
mm,
well is something as Kometsa we're working towards the accreditations. So
yeah,
people can take the online experience, learn the skills, but then also have the piece of paper which is still relevant, even if it's a digital form of the paper. That
yeah.
is something that's definitely important as well, Sam.
Yeah, and integration of all these learning approaches, just to add on top to the benefits you've mentioned. Every project, Divesh, opens your eyes. I had a conversation with you a week ago, and I was so devastated about some of the things that I needed to put in place for me to be able to go through certain stages of evolution of being a player in education. In this particular case, for Commerce Business Academy. And I got an aha moment there after I had a discussion. The moment I dropped the call from talking to you, I actually found out that I was just a vulnerable coachee, not a coach, a vulnerable coachee talking to a seasoned, experienced life coach, Divesh. And what struck me was the calmness with which you took. I was actually expecting you to help me push me further down, because to support me in my disengagement with this, because I was frustrated. And then I realized that, when they say life is the best university, actually what they mean is that if you have this attitude of actually learning out of every situation and try things before you give up, you will be amazed how much you are capable of. And I'm sharing with you this as part of this conversation, that business is a business, right? And then we hook the word education. So which means that it's not just any education, it's an education that helps us to become successful in running business. So now if you think of it, if you're running a business and you come across a challenge and then you give up, are you in business? You need to know when you are overwhelmed to ask for help. And then I realized that, but actually I was learning from this project, and today I'm in a different space, I must tell you. And then again, there are people who talk about they called lunch learning. There's a word for it, where you put together a quick menu in terms of topic, and you meet
Yes.
in a lunch situation, and within 1 hour you get a presentation, you have a discussion, you take a resolution, you have had lunch, you have met people, you have eaten, you have listened, and you have got something back to take with. I was wondering, but why will people do that? And now I realize that, but this is exactly what the business environment requires. Not a healthy thing all the time, but it's a time that actually, if it's used fruitfully, it can really deliver solutions. Now, we are linking business empowerment through business education. Now, let's get the three together. Empowerment. Let's unpack empowerment. And I've started unpacking business, and we've unpacked education. But let's talk about empowerment, which suggests that there's a clear objective why you embark on a business education. And that clear objective is the empowerment part of it. But what about empowerment? So I tried to really unpack it, and I'm not using the traditional definition of empowerment. I'm going deeper to say, when somebody is empowered, it suggests that he has been given a confidence to be able to face the challenges of life. So there's a business case. If there is no challenges, then maybe you don't need empowerment, right? And then secondly, um, empowerment is almost like it gives you it liberates you. You are getting liberated from whatever that is was strangling you. But it can also be that you are a newbie in this part of business, that you never actually dreamt of you being able to reach that. And then because of your education, you actually got given access. A lot of our people, got empowered because of their achievement in the universities, and then they got scholarships, myself included, you included. And then when you get a scholarship, you get to be asked where you want to go and study. So you have empowerment to choose the best university because funds is not a problem. And then you even get suggestion to say that with this knowledge and the brains you have, we might as well send you to London or New York or Frankfurt. And in my case, of course, I got lucky to get scholarship from Karl Duisberg Gesellschaft, it was a German organization. I mean, that day when I was sitting that aeroplane for the first time in my entire life, 747 Jumbo Lufthansa aircraft. I had never seen an aircraft before. I never slept, Divesh, that night. And what was going on through my mind was, say, but what did I do to deserve this? And my life has never been the same. Now you can imagine a child in deep rural South Africa who gets, and I like what the government does with the matric results, where they get the students, the best students from the schools you never expected. Overnight, they get put on a pedestal and they get given scholarship and they get to do that. So I'm talking from a practical example. We're talking real empowerment, real life-changing things, and we are saying, and I'm going to now allow you to again to add or reflect. We are saying if that business education is incidental, once in a while, you are not going to experience empowerment. In other words, lifelong learning is not something that you're going to start and finish. It's a commitment to life, it's an attitude, it's a mindset, and you're learning on the go in the class, anywhere. And that is why, for me, it's lifelong learning that will give you that empowerment. And the business will give you the opportunity.
Yes, Seb. Just as well, I'm also engaging in facilitation role and in the traditional educational environment.
Yeah.
And I do make it a point to say to the beneficiaries that as much as we are in a traditional educational environment where you got to learn in a traditional way, look at the curriculum, and you will get tested on this material.
Yes.
Uh, you have to really go out and do research on your own to see what is happening in the marketplace, not be too comfortable with the material that you are studying and will get tested on. Unfortunately, it takes very long to update curriculum. And me coming from industry, looking at the material, I can see it's outdated. But we have to do the what's required of us, and we facilitate. They learn the material. You give them analogies with the real world so they can also understand the material better, as well as when they get a chance to participate in the economy, they at least have a sense of what to expect. And a very interesting program which Comensa also participates in with regards to work integrated learning is part and parcel of the lifelong learning culture that we're speaking of. But my take of empowerment is a little bit different, or perhaps I can add to what you've mentioned in terms of empowerment. When we talk of the modern workplace, and we've mentioned as well how um, digital transformation is rapidly changing the world as we know it. Not just our work environments, our personal lives are also being affected. And the future of work as well is going to be very different from what it is now. One of the challenges that Kometsa as a forerunner in the new transformation of business education is something we've experienced, you've experienced. Your engagements with the process of QCTO, for example, as
Mm.
much as QCTO is a new way of looking at that sector, it still needs to do catch up with regards to the transformation agenda which Kometsa is at the forefront and has been developing things which the marketplace is still catching up to.
Yeah.
So that brings me to the point of empowerment. Empowerment for me, again, is to bridge that skills gap in the modern workplace. When we look at an organization, we must also look at how the online learning platforms would address the growing demand for practical, job ready skills. Being
Mm.
able to be adaptable. You may have come from university, you have some theoretical knowledge, expert knowledge, but like you also mentioned, you sometimes are not able to disseminate that knowledge to your fellow colleagues at work or be able to discuss your skills or proposals because your work environment is not necessarily the traditional either. You could be sitting in Johannesburg, but you're engaging with a project team in London, project team in India, in Houston, Texas. And you got to understand things like culture, you got to understand things like language use, facial expression, gestures, lots of different dynamics. And this is what we're talking about in terms of being able to address the skills gap. That being said, as well, your skills gap could entail technical knowledge, which you weren't able to learn in the traditional educational environment that you came from. And how is it that you will get the new skills adapted to your environment, your work environment, shared to your beneficiary as quick as possible, as efficient as possible, and being able to have resources which the digital platforms offer you over and above your traditional educational platforms that we are often used to. So, while digital platforms often offer targeted, up to date training, ideal for addressing immediate skills gaps, they do complement rather than fully replace traditional education. So it's a supplementary thing, but it overcomes a lot of the challenges that we do face with regards to our traditional educational systems, especially in the business environment. And again, as you mentioned as well, that the education, the platforms that Cometa is offering is it has to be seen as a business because we have to consider sustainability.
Yeah.
If you want to offer the skills that we have, the knowledge we have, but we are doing it in an unsustainable manner, then the value proposition of what we're talking about diminishes. So it's definitely
Absolutely.
got to be as a business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the comprehensive foundational knowledge that you do get from traditional institutions is empowered even more when you combine it with the flexibility of online courses and it creates a balanced educational approach, Sam.
Mm, mm. It's amazing that you speak that you're addressing the psychology of consumer behavior or using psychology and consumer behavior there. It's amazing what people attach value to. You know, when you don't position this dissemination of information and knowledge as a business case, then people don't see value in it, and I think that is fundamental. And but I'm grateful that we did not take chances and rush to package prices and all things, but we educated ourselves. We went through the pain of testing our very own product and even really enjoying it. And it's a long way, it's the most expensive way, but deep down, I am feeling great, knowing very well that if cornered in a tight corner, I will be able to defend myself because I've tasted the product. Uh, but for me, fascinates me is the future possibilities that comes with these technology platforms. And but what sometimes saddens me, two things is business education can happen in volumes, because remember, business education is not replacing the basic education people come with. And I'm not talking basic as in basic education, but the knowledge that you come with, the qualifications you come with to go into business, for the company to hire you. It does not replace that. In many cases, it actually positions that in a way that it makes sense to your new work. Business education, it takes you to another level. And it makes you a better person. It reminds you that we don't expect you to come here and stop learning. It's almost like if you chop the tree and you don't sharpen the saw, the axe is going to go, it's going to go blunt. So it's not a by the way thing. And I'm almost feeling like I want to go onto activism and pushing forward business empowerment through business education, because it's not by the way thing. It must happen if people are to extract much more value from their knowledge. But what saddens me, and let me go back to the point I want to raise, is when you start having issues like public infrastructure, like the internet accessibility and Wi-Fi and electricity, coming in the middle of this excitement of us wanting to catch up with the rest of the world, it makes you want to think whether you are playing a role at the right level. Because maybe first things first must be addressed. Businesses must demand certain public infrastructure to be in place because business pay taxes, so that we are able to do this business lifelong learning without people leaving work. Secondly, what saddens me is what we are having to put up with as a result of what we did not do years ago, not even the 30 years from behind, from then. You know, generations after generations of our country have missed great opportunities because education was not delivered in sufficient amount. Or when it was delivered, it was not relevant to the future, to today's world. So there are people that you meet, and I think one day you did mention that there are people who have never gone to education, and when you look at them, how they go about running their lives and businesses, you wonder if they had education, what they could have become. I think of my own mother. That woman was just everything to me. You have heard about my book. You have spoken about her a number of times. She was not educated. She only did up to some standard in high primary school. But the things she did in the community, the things she did for me as a child and my siblings, without that education, the belief that she had for education, for that matter. So now we are sitting with a situation where the gaps of many years, and I'm experiencing it because I've got a lot of our members that I want them to be on board to where you and I are. And I'm talking literate people who have got qualifications, but they are illiterate in terms of the level of understanding and affinity of technology, and also imagination of where 5 years is going to be. You almost want to say, hey, I'm fearful for you. Because even myself, I'm battling with the speed with which. So I think that is where volunteerism come in, and that's where the NGOs of Comesa come in. That's where the facilitators of Comesa come in. We cannot help it, but we've got to be interested in social investment part of the business. Because if we don't do that, I don't see any government anywhere in the world coming to South Africa and say, we're going to give you money to accelerate those who missed out on education to come to the level where they are equal, and then so that we can walk at the same level. Yes, interventions are there, but we're talking big numbers, Divesh. It is just, the level of unemployment contributes to people regressing as well. So as much as we want to commercialize business education, and as you have said, we are on that journey today. I've submitted my last required documents, and tomorrow I'm having a virtual visit to inspection. I'm no longer fearful. I'm very excited. I'm really feeling like, I've entered another level. And thanks to you also giving me the inspiration. Every time I look at you, I say, this guy went to study AI, artificial intelligence, the very same thing that is making people freak, that's making people not sleep. He went and did masters in it. It just gives me hope, and it just says to me that we haven't yet arrived at the point where we can harvest what we have planted. So those are the things. So I'm trying to say we cannot forget our responsibility to carry people along as we advance. Because business education with the key CTOs, what they are doing now, a metric is sufficient, and then a person enters the stream of qualification through occupational and trades direction and can get to the PhD level. So why then do you want to go and waste time? If you have, especially if you don't have resources, why do you want to go and waste time, full time, 5 years? You come back, everything you have learned is gone out of. It's no longer. Well, I must be careful because I'm not suggesting that that is not valueless. But I'm just saying that if you decided to become an industrialist, if you decided to become a corporate person, to make a career in business environment, there's no need for you to go and spend 5 years in the academic institution and then come and spend another 5 years getting used to the academic to the corporate world and only then catch up. You don't have to. They don't have to wait for like you and I had to wait. And that is the rationale for Commercial Business Academy and for a drive for empowerment through business education. And the day we start counting even the rewards in the form of study fees, Divesh, you and I will be talking a different language. And we'll be sitting at a coffee shop and say, my goodness, did we just get it? While we're getting compensated at the same time, we're changing lives and making economic impact in terms of growing the economy of South Africa. I'm getting excited and wanting to talk forever, but I hope I'm creating the context of lifelong learning, empowerment through business education, what it is and what it's not.
Indeed, Sam. I mean, it's definitely something to get excited about. Yes. But I also think, as a country, some of the positions I sit in, unfortunately or fortunately, allows me to see perspectives that also lead me to be very worried about
Yes,
the country. And initiatives such as what I got involved in with regards to COMETSA encourages me because I do take some responsibility onto my own shoulders, and I support COMETSA's responsibilities as well, which has been grown through its ethos that you have grown into COMETSA over a very long time, in that we want to transform, we want to develop communities because at the end of the day, through individuals within communities, we can change the direction of the country in terms of where we go. And like you rightfully said, we do get interventions which tries to help the organization or the country, whether it's from an organizational perspective, whether it's from a community level, to improve our access to technology, yeah, internet access, hotspots, that kind of thing, or even being able to be exposed to platforms such as COMETSA's to help communities get to a different level of education. And like you rightfully saying, it's not necessarily only about the traditional education systems that people are used to. You do look at the doom and gloom that you do have many graduates who are unemployed, unable to get employment, and also struggle with regards to getting into business. And the skills that we are talking about is those skills which are needed, not necessarily the knowledge that you'd get from a traditional and educational environment, but the skills that's needed for the future of work. That being said, I just also wanted to quantify one of the things that we've maybe taken for granted in our show. When we speak of business, we are talking about various industries. We're not
yeah,
talking about business where there's
yeah,
traditionally they say it's a bank or anything like that. A doctor is a business. A
yes,
training education institution is a business. Uh, you're selling vegetables, that's a business. So if you have a spaza shop, that's a business as well. So when we speak business, we're talking about all industries. For it to be deemed as a business, it's about sustainability and it's about longevity. What do you need in those environments, in those businesses that will make sure you are there providing whatever service you're providing, whether it's even a feeding scheme environment? It's still a business, and you want to make sure that you are feeding people this year, next year, and the years that come. So that is what I wanted to just quantify as well. When we say business, we're talking banking, we're talking
Yeah.
ISP, internet, etc. Yes, Sam.
So within business, there's many, many branches, and that excites me because you are suggesting that we aren't going to be finished soon with, with what we are going to have to be engaged. I mean, you know that phase two of this process that we've been going through is the launching of our e-learning platform.
Yes.
Where now you don't have to have a diversion SM live like the way we are now, but you can, the moment we finish this, we put it on the e-learning platform. People know that that is a hub, and they search by topics, and then they learn at their own pace, at their own time. That's why sometimes even when we are live on this platform, and there are very few people listening, or there's nobody listening at all, it doesn't worry me, because the key thing is we are producing knowledge. And the
Yes.
technology enables us to package this knowledge and then archive it on our e-learning platform for it to be needs specific. For someone who knows what we are about and who knows that he or she can come at their own time, go to our e-learning platform and put the topic there. I want something about lifelong learning. And then you get a list of all episodes. And then you then go through them and write their assignments, whatever assignment they are doing. And that for me, phase two, actually, and I want it to happen, and it's going to happen much quicker, because once we are licensed, it's no longer about the worry that we are investing money in something that we don't know whether it's going to work or not. Think about in terms of business education and empowerment through business education. Just think about the unlimited list of skills development programs. I'm not talking about qualifications now, because qualifications is more of a long-term commitment. You want to go through project management because you want to make a career in project management. Therefore, you need a qualification, in our case, NQF level 5.
Yeah.
But as you are in the company and you are embarking on a lifelong learning, there is another thing that the key CTOs and the CTAs are pushing, and that is skills development program. The skills development programs are very need specific, and
Yes.
they are responding to the immediate needs, but they still require to be facilitated by somebody that has got the facilitation knowledge and is intentional about the impact it's making in delivering that course. I was last week in a 1 day first aid training course, and let me tell you the honest truth. I went there with a bit of an attitude to say, but what do I learn really in 1 day? This is a tick box thing. I came back transformed, because the things that they told me that I didn't know, that I feel scared now that I know what it entails, that there's so many of us who are walking among hazards, and we can never help anybody, we can never save any life just because of a lack of basics. And that is what skills development programs are there for. And I believe the skills development programs are not being positioned proper. And this is what I'm doing for you using this example to say that it's not about acquiring a new technical knowledge, it's about acquiring an insight and awareness, and then being ready for when you are that insight is required. And so much so that I feel that I can be okay if somebody collapses in front of me. At least a little bit of a minimum I know in terms of how do I look for help and how do I sustain that life while the help is coming. Don't you think that is valuable for any society? And that is
Indeed.
empowerment through business education, that you can go for first aid training and be in the company and be designated as a first aider. And people knowing very well that if somebody collapses, at least we know Divesh is got the first aid training. Isn't that empowerment?
100%. Like I was mentioning earlier, that skills, new sort of focus in terms of skill, for me is where the empowerment comes in. Just to share with you, just today, I had 3 people contacting me to say they went through the Cometsa Hub and they're interested in 1, 2, 3, 4 courses, but they can't see the prices. Where's the prices? Because they want to make decisions. I said, "No,
Yeah.
okay, hold on. At the moment, we are not charging and not giving the courses out in a very formal way. We
That
getting
comes
our
in phase two.
accreditation. Yes.
Mm,
Once we've got our accreditation, then we will be charging. But we want to be able to not only give you quality material and training, but also that piece of paper, which is still a requirement out there
mm,
to quantify as well that you've got the skills
yeah,
for the business environment that you want to get into, but also for you to be able to be cognizant of your own skill, that you went through a course, you didn't sleep while the course was being, you know, facilitated to you. You actually learned something. So you will get your certificate at the end. It's your own part of your self leadership journey.
yeah,
And often in our own modules that we deal with as Kometsa, we'll always emphasize that we take these and firstly you apply it as a developmental agenda of your own self leadership development, but then you also take that and apply it into your work environment or your personal life or your study life, whatever the case may be, even your relationship. So
yeah,
in terms of the point you also raised is one of the things Kometsa focuses in on is not just those traditional learning opportunities, your traditional programs that gets offered by the traditional educational institutions, but we're also looking at how do you cultivate a corporate culture of continuous learning, because in order to be your business to be sustainable, you've got to be competitive in a global marketplace now. And the only way that can be is if you have an organization, a business which is as close to a family as possible. And in order for that to happen, your organization, your business as well, has to have people working in that organization who are continuously learning, continuously evolving, adding more innovation to the organization itself. And one of the things, I mean, we could look at is what are the strategies that the business can adopt to ensure that their teams remain agile and they're prepared for future challenges. You look at the war in Ukraine, and you thought it was about a territorial thing, it was about a cultural thing, and also a leadership challenge between two leaders. But now you start to see what the true nature of the war was
yeah,
about.
yeah,
Now you can find that one stakeholder decides they can change sides. We were supporting this side, but that side's not actually giving us what we want. So we change sides and go to the other side. And it's so easy that there's new negotiations going on because at the end of the day, it's about the future of minerals, minerals that will be dictating who are the leaders of the global context. So, on a smaller scale, when we look at business and sustainability, education, acquiring of new skills, becoming more adaptable and more agile is really the focus. Businesses need to build robust learning cultures by providing regular training, incentivizing skills development, and establishing mentorship programs. Doesn't matter what the sector is. I mean, you and I, we discussed even the engineering built environment, that the more traditional focus is that you take an engineer with his technical know-how, his technical experience, and you expect him to coach or mentor an up and coming person which would have new skill requirements. You got to understand the landscape more, community engagement. How does your product offer in terms of sustainability? Those are new things and those are new skills that engineer needs to unlearn and relearn before
mm,
he can pass it on to the younger engineer. Otherwise, you're building or you're forcing a culture which is not as adaptable as what is required from the environment that we're in. And one thing I wanted to just also add to our conversation is that partnerships which are leading in terms of online platforms. We've already been seeing them worldwide. You mentioned the two that you're partnering with, and you already mentioned that Even in the coaching space, you've got an artificial intelligence coach. And I can guarantee you that coach is not a static coach. As it's engaging with new clients, it's learning and evolving. As there's
Absolutely.
new frameworks, it's going
Yeah.
to adapt as well. That
Yeah.
again is highly enticing and interesting to myself. Having a master's in AI, I'm busy with a PhD now.
Yeah.
But if we don't, as a culture, as an organization, as a country, as an individual, strive to become members of the lifelong learning club,
Yeah.
then we're going to be left behind, sir.
I love that. It's launched. Lifelong Learning Club.
Yes.
Here at Commerce, join. Great stuff. I'm looking at time. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much for that insight. I'm very excited about the AI coach and all the stuff that is coming through. And I like what you have just said now, that it's not a static coach, even though it's an AI coach. It's a continuous learning coach. So you can see that the principle is applying there. But I also look at the diversity of approaches that we are going to use towards in our relationship with knowledge and education. It's fascinating, we can talk about the online learning, face-to-face learning, and talk about the audio and video streaming. I actually this week identified the South African company that they are a leader in the audio video streaming and filming and all those type of things. I want to talk to them because in terms of cost packaging, those are the people we will talk to. And then, of course, our webinars. Webinars, as a packaging. That once we finish talking here, we put it on an online as a webinar type of. The conferences that we must still run, the face-to-face Lekgotlas that we must run. When we get into the Lekgotla, we must not be a member of a face-to-face event. We are coming into Lekgotla as a member of Life Learning Club. Today we decided to be face-to-face, but tomorrow we could be online. So that are some of the things that I want to close with those as the remarks, as a launch of this topic, empowerment through business education, lifelong learning. Those are my closing remarks. Your closing remarks, Divesh?
Yes, Sam. Lifelong learning for me is my own culture as well. I try to instill that in my colleagues that I work with. I try to instill that with my own kids. They're a bit young, I think. Hopefully, they see me working hard, always learning, trying to educate, trying to develop new skills. But what's most important for me in that own personal journey is that of increasing my skills, in particular with regards to the self leadership. If you're able to be a leader of self, you're a leader, regardless of position. And often I've said that it's not the position you're holding, but who you're leading and how you lead. You can lead from behind. So you may be in a team, you may not be the head, but you're still leading that team. And
Yeah,
once you become a leader, you can actually influence people, influence communities, and then be able to use a lot of the traditional skills and education and knowledge that you do have, combined with the new age skills, which is needed in the transformed environments that we operate in, including the education space, and be able to then have effective outcomes with those people around you. So, with joining the Kometsa family, that is something I've been enjoying the most, in that I grow as a person, but we all grow together by sharing information, giving each other the space, giving us opportunity to own that space, to be able to learn and be able to teach each other. So, in terms of the business environment, that recipe which Kometsa has perfected, we are then packaging and being able to then implement it in whichever business environment is willing to join us on this journey of transforming the educational landscape. Thank you, Sam.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. I think we have launched our conversations, empowerment through business learning, business education. Lifelong learning is the way to go by, and I think we will win many more members of this movement. And yeah, so next week we might be talking a different language. Phase one of our transition into business education seems to be behind us. I'm left with few things to press the button for them to go over to the other side. Tomorrow, I'm just going to subject myself to the authorities, and I hope if I can achieve 99.9% of what they require, then I think I will be happy and I can say that the future is bright indeed and phase two can start. The providers of the phase two platforms, they can't wait. They're knocking at the door every day to say, we are ready for you. They've scoped it up already and it's a promising thing indeed. Thank you, Divesh. Divesh, I hope the colleagues will catch up with our replay and be excited and be ready for the next episode next month of empowerment through business education. Thank you so much, listeners, viewers. This is Commerza Television Network, our video streaming platform of Commerza Global online channels. And my name is Sam Zima. I was the anchor and co-host with my friend and colleague Divesh Motilal. And we're saying au revoir, au revoir, until we meet again next week or whenever you are able to join us. Let me leave the live streaming and stay in the studio, Divesh.